All right. We are going live on YouTube right now, and let's go ahead and record here. And let's go live on Facebook too. Why not? All right. We're live on Facebook. We're 1 minute early, but hey, why not? What's up, Voltaire? It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. Listen, I'm going to do my thing, and then I'm going to get to us. Okay.
That's cool, man. I'm here observing, listening, taking notes.
All right. So we are here for another installment. There it is, 8 o'clock straight up. Welcome, everyone. This is another installment of Get a Clue in 52. It's Sunday night. It's casual. There's no makeup and lights and smoke and mirrors and pre-production. It's just Sunday night. Hopefully this gets you ready for your week. And sometimes we're joined from people by people all over the world. Specifically, there's a guy I'm thinking of, Charlie from South Africa, and it's always Monday morning for him. So hopefully he shows up today. And usually Miss Patty from Chicago shows up. She stays up till 10 o'clock to be with us. But if you're watching a recording of this, or if you come on later, whether it's live or you're watching the live stream into my YouTube channel, watch Get a Clue. Thank you for coming on board. Get a Clue in 52. This is the second edition of the book, Get a Clue in 52. Last year in 2020, we read all 52 tips, one per Sunday evening. And then I upgraded the book. I made some improvements. So now we got the second edition. I'm doing it again. So we're in week 34 tonight out of 52. There's 5 categories in the book, 10 tips each, except for marketing. There's 2 extra tips. We started this year in the communication section. Then we went to the marketing section, then the networking section, which we finished 2 weeks ago. Last week, we started the sales section, which is where we are now. Tip number 2 tonight in the sales section. And the last point that of review or introduction is that last year in the first edition of the book, we live streamed into the Facebook group, Get a Clue in 52, where we have just over 700 members now. So I think that's pretty cool. Intimate, but powerful group. And this year we're live streaming into my YouTube channel, Watch Get a Clue, all one word. I'm committed to seeing how many subscribers I can get on the YouTube channel, but it's kind of nice to populate both platforms with what will end up being 52 videos, one for each tip in the book. So now I see Charlie and Patty coming on board. Let me say hello to you. As you can see, my special guest tonight is Voltaire Lepe. I'll get to a more thorough introduction of him in a moment. But for now, let me say that, this little profession, this little career that I've carved out for personal professional growth, motivation, accountability, it's got these benefits. And one of them is just how intimately I become or get to become with clients. And some of them that are better than others, right, or different than others, they stay a long time. Anyway, I just want you guys to know right off the bat, and I'll get to more formal introduction in a second, Voltaire has been with me as a client since before the Get a Clue brand even launched. Get a Clue was an idea, but before I launched the brand in January of 2009, it was just a more quiet bubblegum and paperclip kind of clip art kind of branding that I didn't promote really, loud the way that you scream Get a Clue in the integrity game from the rooftops now. So Voltaire and I have watched each other for many years, well over a decade. We've been in each other's lives professionally, of course, is how it started, but I consider him a friend, and I want you to as well. So go ahead. I'm going to get into the book now and get the tip reading over with so I can interact with Voltaire, introduce him to the guests that are online with me. And I'm trying to pay attention to Facebook as well to see if any comments come through that I might end up reading. But who knows? It could just be us, which is fine and dandy. So in the book, Get a Clue in 52, the sales section starts on page 80. And the first tip that we read last week was build rapport. I go deeper into saying that don't do anything before you build rapport. And more importantly, building rapport is more than just, oh, hey, Voltaire, I see there's a cleaning lady in your office. I have a cleaning lady too. Right. Anyway, remember the laugh that we had last week, Charlie, when you said those are great shoes up there and I didn't get the joke and I went into telling you all about them. And anyway, Voltaire's a great basketball player as well. And you've seen Shaq's shoes, but building rapport, it's really about work. It's about effort. It's about listening. It's about asking great questions so you have good stuff to listen to. It's about not just you superficially or on the surface looking at something that the two of you can connect with. It's both people knowing and feeling that there's a same page that you're on, at least for the purpose that you're interacting. Sometimes I'll ask, hey, are we on the same page? Sometimes I'll ask, hey, are we in rapport? Hey, do I know who I'm talking to? Do you sense that I have gotten to know, you know what I mean? You want that permission. You want to affirm. I don't like to move forward in a sales process or even know if it's worth moving forward. I don't even know if it's a sales process sometimes until that rapport is established. I like to say as a Kluby snack, Charlie, you've heard this one before, so it doesn't count as tonight's Kluby snack, but you've heard me say before that I don't like to build a mansion on top of quicksand. I'm here to tell you, just in brief review of tip number one, if you advance into a sales process, especially a service where, right, especially a life service like coaching or real estate or mortgage or financial advising, fiduciary, estate planning attorney, if you venture into that process without building rapport, dare I say, you might be building something on top of quicksand. Rapport is the solid foundation. All right, so that brings us to tonight. Tip number 2 on page 83. Let me go ahead and read the word for word, and then we'll move into open-ended conversation. I'll introduce Voltaire. I'll ask him a couple of questions, and then Charlie, Patty, we'll see if you guys have any questions for him. So far, I don't see anything coming on the Facebook side. All right, so here we go, page 83. Salespeople are not doctors. Oh, by the way, the name of the tip is Diagnose. All right, here we go. Word for word. Salespeople are not doctors, therapists, or psychiatrists per se. So maybe discover is a better and safer word than diagnose. Nevertheless, the tip here is to find out what needs to be different. What does the prospect want? What do they really want? Even better if you can find out why they want it, and bonus points for figuring out how strongly they want it. See tip number 3. That'll be next week. We'll cover it. Or what is hurting them? What is really hurting them? Even better if you can find out why it is hurting them. And again, bonus points for figuring out how bad it hurts. We are talking about pleasure and pain, the only 2 motivating forces on the planet. Does your product, service, investment, or experience or event get them out of that pain or closer to that pleasure? So many bad salespeople are leading with what I call commission breath, which is what it smells like when you try to sell without taking the time to get clear about what the prospect wants, needs, and why. Last, you want the prospect to declare it themselves or agree with you when you say something like, it sounds to me like you really want, need blank. Is that right? Of course, this step is so much easier if you've already done the work of tip number 1, building rapport. All right, there it is. That's the tip. I appreciate the brevity of these tips, because normally I'm long-winded. Patty, you'll attest to that, right? I can go on and on and on explaining things forever. And the tip is brief. I'm actually letting our imaginations do the rest of the work here. So we'll get into comments and questions about diagnosis, how careful we want to be not to pass ourselves off as medical professionals with that term. But the point is still there. How much effort are we taking to find out and get clear and get agreement? That's another thing. If you're taking notes at all, agreement. How clear are you in getting agreement on what the person wants, needs, how bad they want it, why do they want it, etc. Voltaire, heads up, I'm going to be asking you to apply this tip to real estate, right? When you're pre-qualifying buyers, sellers, investors, etc., tenants, all the different people that you deal with, because there's so many different sales that you make in your profession. But let me go ahead and take a deep breath now and introduce my man, Voltaire. Voltaire, he's a baller. That's what I hear in my head every time. Voltaire is a baller. One of the very first coaching sessions I ever did with Voltaire, he had talked to me about, I said, what were our wins? What are we celebrating? What's been awesome? He's like, well, I dunked on my friend. Do you remember that? But anyway, so he's a fantastic basketball player. One of our mutual friends, another client of mine that Voltaire introduced me to, verified that Voltaire is an incredible basketball player. We've been to Staples Center together. I brought AJ with me to a Clippers Celtics game that Voltaire hooked us up with when AJ was like 5. So, I mean, we've been in each other's life a long time. Professionally, he's a self-made millionaire. He's does consistently 80, 85 transactions a year. He's also an educator. He's been doing, populating social media and his website with educational videos, because I know for a fact he constantly attends conferences, workshops. He's invested in all kinds of various coaching. Sometimes he's out of town because he's at this training, that training. So he's committed to learning. He's like an ideal type of coaching client because he wills himself into the learning. He wills himself into the accountability. He's got a great sense of humor. Oh my God. I'm proud of the way he takes care of his body. He's been vegan for a couple of years. He's donated over $100,000 to Our Lady's schools just since 2013 in the last 8 years. That's better than a pace. This is easy math because I'm a communication guy. I think that's better than 10 grand a year, right? In 8 years, over 100 grand. Yeah, somebody else do the math, but I think that you're outpacing 10 grand a year with that level of philanthropy or charitable work that you're doing. And you keep it fun. You do things like movie night for the community, and you're serving a certain demographic, a target. There's a certain type of family really that leans on you, relies on you. You could do it all, but I've seen you constantly. When I look at your pictures online, just sold. I just am proud of what you represent to your community. And when I visualize you filling up a movie theater for movie night and handing out cash and prizes and making it fun, it just warms my heart, man. You've got balance. You take care of yourself. You take care of your community. You're doing all the right things. I'm so proud to have you on board. Welcome, Voltaire, to Get a Clue in 52.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And by the way, that time I dunked on my friend, that was like still to this day the best day of my life. So I definitely remember that day.
Well, and isn't it? Well, one of the things that's cool is how, I mean, we haven't done this in a while because you've gotten yourself to a rhythm where you don't need me for the things that you used to rely on me for. You're programmed. You're just like a machine on some level now. But do you remember how if you were ever in a funk or whatever, all I'd get you to do is, hey, tell me about that time you dunked on your friend again, and then everything would change, and then you just boom right there into action, right? So that's a tip out there for those of you that have ever had an amazing feeling of domination, especially on a friend, which is always leader, right? You can think about that anytime you want to, and then get into productivity. But Voltaire, back to you, man. Start off and tell us something about you that nobody knows, because I just mentioned a lot of different things. I went, personal, fun, trivial, business, charitable. Let's start off with something light. Is there something about you nobody knows that you can share with us right now?
Something about me that nobody knows. For many years, I kept the secret that I owned real estate and that I had, multiple properties and had money, and for many years, and including to my friends, family, girlfriend at the time. So that's something that nobody knows about me.
Oh, in other words, it was a front. Was it like a fake it till you make it thing, or
no?
Wait. No, the other way around. You had all of that, and you didn't tell anybody.
Right. Yeah. So that's
Let's go deeper. How come?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the first thing that pops in my head is, when just growing up, it's like, if you have something, you don't tell nobody, because if you tell somebody, they'll take it. It's like, it's just, that mentality of just not really sharing too much, and just or being open about stuff, because there's people that may not like it, and it's like, I'd rather people think like, oh man, let me help this guy, poor guy, than, man, this guy has more than me, I don't like him, or I wish bad intentions, bad vibes. So I think maybe that's why.
Interesting. Either way, it's a defense mechanism, right? There's a lot of people out there that are flaunting a bunch of riches that they don't even really have, right? There's people that might have the car and the clothes, but if you went to their apartment, you'd see an empty fridge. You know what I'm saying? They're going the other way around, right? So, I mean, then chalk another one up for you. There's like maybe it's born out of, the upbringing, right? But I think it's also a humility piece. And, it's great when people like you for who you are rather than for what you have, until they find out that you have what you have because of who you are. Did you hear that one, Charlie? Right? It's nice. Let's say it again. It's nice when people like you for who you are instead of what you have, until they find out that what you have is because of who you are.
That's a good one.
Thank you. That just on the spot. Like there. Charlie asks for a Kluby snack every week, and sometimes we got one up our sleeve that we give to him at the end. Sometimes they come up organically, and I could keep some in the vault, if you will. All right. So, Voltaire, the reason that you're on tonight, among everything else I said, like if I just asked, you would do it. So, thank you for that. But we were talking the other day about the real estate market, and you said to me, people are afraid to buy right now. So, from a sales perspective, and there's other tips. There's 8 more tips in the sales section of this book. One of them is going to be drop the SME, subject matter expertise. So, I'm kind of foreshadowing that a little bit. I'm going to call on you to do that. I'm going to invite you to drop your subject matter expertise. One, because anybody watching this now or a recording deserves to know how educated and smart you are about what you're doing. But 2, to relate it to what we're doing tonight, sales, right? Diagnosis. When it's time for you to diagnose what people want, how bad they want it, one of the things from a buyer's perspective that you're coming up against, as we talked the other day, is this concern, I'm afraid to buy at the top of the market. Okay. A really good, professional, elegant, classy salesperson has a way to address that type of concern. So let's hear it, Voltaire. What do you have to say? Let's start there. Let's expand to how do we diagnose? Like you've diagnosed that's one of buyers' concerns right now. So let's address it. Let's talk about diagnosing other forms of buyers in real estate.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I'll start off by saying that, I've been doing this 19 years, and the first many years, 10 plus years, it was like, I was a good realtor. Like I mentioned, I took courses, I did a good job for my clients. I really tried, and I worked hard. So I felt I was like top-notch realtor. And then when I started actually owning real estate, buying real estate and holding on to real estate and having tenants and, dealing with the management and with the income and expenses and everything that comes with that. And then getting to a point where now I'm really managing my wealth, right? Because I don't want to lose my wealth and I don't want it to stay flat either. I want it to grow. So then I take it up several notches where I actually have to start studying this stuff and start like really, reading books, taking more courses, listening to podcasts every morning, and really critically think about how I could increase my wealth. That's when, I started becoming way more educated. And if I put that type of effort when I first started in real estate, I think during 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, I mean, I would have bought so much real estate because I would have just had all that knowledge. But again, I gained my knowledge because necessity, really, right? I started owning real estate and I just needed to preserve my wealth. So going back to the sales part of it, nowadays when speaking with clients, it's a lot easier because when a client says, hey, well, I don't want to buy, it's the top of the market and I'm scared. And I just heard this yesterday twice to different people. Everybody says that it's expensive. My cousin who owns one property or who bought 20 years ago says I should wait until the market drops. You start getting all this feedback from other people who aren't experts, right? And so now it's a lot easier for me because sometimes they go, hey, what would you do? I go, well, I'm not just going to tell you. I mean, just look at what I'm doing right now. Over the last 10 months, I picked up 11 units, 3 properties, 11 units. I mean, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Mm-hmm. I feel that the real estate market right now, there's a huge opportunity for many reasons. But one reason is super simple. I mean, a bank yesterday, they offered me, because I wrote an offer today on a property for 1.6 million. They offered me a loan for 2.25%. And if I wanted 2.25% interest only, right? And it's almost like this, Jeff, if somebody offers you 10 million bucks and they go, hey, Jeff, do you want to borrow 10 million bucks? And I'm, just give me 2.25% interest rate. Jeff, if you can't flip that 10 million into 20 million in 7 years or 10 years,
right?
It's like, okay, you shouldn't take that money.
If I can't find something that can earn me 2.5 or better, then I should say no. But otherwise, it's a quick yes.
Right. So, right, that's a huge opportunity, right off the bat is just money so cheap. But the other part of it right now is if you don't own real estate and you're a renter, right? Because a lot of my clients, that's kind of what I'm about. Like you mentioned earlier, it's like
Mhm.
I want other people to succeed. And the reason why now it's like I talk about what I'm doing and what I've done and what I have is because I want other people that know me to be like, hey, I know that guy. He's not the
Possible.
smartest, he's not the smartest or the brightest or whatever. I mean, he's really good looking, but you know, I I I I think I'm smarter or as smart as him. So let me try it because I know where he came from and look at where he's at. So that's the reason why I share this stuff. So nowadays, when dealing with a lot of people that don't own any real estate, I I share my story, right? Because the story goes a long way. And then that kind of gets them thinking like, oh, maybe I should do this. And there's so many programs for especially first time property owners that I mean, the government, but Bank of America has one right now. They'll give you 17,500 bucks for free,
Hmm.
right? To use as your down payment. They'll give you a 2.5% interest rate. And no mortgage insurance, which is a crazy deal. I mean, if you don't own real estate, you should get. So I start to explain those reasons. But, nowadays, going back to the sales part of it, I give a lot of information, right? And not just like information, just like stats, but I explain how I took advantage of those personally
Hmm.
and how it's working out. And I think people just see that and they go, well, shoot, if this guy is actually putting his money where his mouth is, maybe I should do that. So right now, to me personally, um, it's a lot easier than it was before, where I didn't own any real estate and I wasn't really a good student as good as I should have. I was a really hard worker, but I wasn't smart enough to be like, let me look at this history of real estate and try to figure out where it's going.
Well, it seemed to me that, yeah, like when speaking with you the other day, it just seemed to me that you've made the effort to get educated, to learn more at a macro level, the moving forces. When you were telling me, for example, about the client that you have that assures you that right now, although he's invested in other things at different times, he says right now residential real estate mortgages are the best investment you can find.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's a very important thing is, I have so many clients. It's like right? I've been with you for, um, shoot, I've been with you, what, 13 years or something, right? So
yeah.
I hired you a long time ago, just to help me get out of bed, right? Because I wanted to be at the office back then, I don't know if it was like 7 or 7:30, I wanted to be at the office. And because I knew if I got there earlier, at 7 or 7:30, then I would make more money. That's why I hired you back then. And then, it turned into life coaching and all that stuff. But over the years, you've met a lot of people that are really successful,
Yeah.
and so have I. And when I do meet somebody who's successful, I ask a lot of questions, and if they're cool, then I keep in touch, and I look to them as a mentor. So now I reach out to all the millionaire friends that I have, multi-millionaire, deca millionaires, and a few guys that have over $100 million. I reach out to them and I just pick their brain. Hey, what are you doing with your money? What do you think is going to happen? And like that friend that I told you, who's worth over 100 million, who has made money in commodities and the stock market, tens of millions of dollars, and then ultimately over the last, you know, almost 10 years now, has been making his money in real estate. You know, this guy could pick a stock like nobody's business. Last year, several times I called him and I would just, my only question was like, I have some money, what should I buy? And he would tell me stock company. Sure enough, a double, triple, I'll cash out, make my money. And then I'll call him like, a few weeks later. And the last time that I called him asking him his stock tip, stock tip, he said residential mortgages. And this was last
Okay. So just
September.
slow down, make sure people heard that. Called for a stock tip. He said residential mortgages. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I said residential mortgage. How what stock ticker is that? What symbol is that? He goes, no, no. He says you go buy yourself a house and you get yourself a residential mortgage. Money's so cheap it's the best investment you can get. Get yourself a 30-year residential mortgage. And I go, oh, okay. He says, get as many as you can. I go, all right. So since then, I got 3 residential mortgages totaling over $2.7 million. And he was right. So far, he's proved right. So about 15, 16 days ago, when I reached out to him again, I got some extra cash. I'm just like, okay, let me buy something right now. And I asked him again, hot stock tip. And he just said, no, it's still in residential mortgages. Just keep buying. So, and this is from somebody who is not just a real estate guy. This guy just knows how to make money over 20%.
And he had a 20-year career on Wall Street trading like stocks and commodities, right?
He was a hedge fund manager, 20% returns year over year, which is unheard of. And $1 billion hedge fund. So anyhow, with that being said, I ask a lot of questions. I meet a lot of people. I know a lot of millionaires, and I take mentorship, man. It's just like you mentioned earlier. I'm just I try to be as humble as I can. No ego. It's like I want to learn from people who just don't even know what to do with all the money that they have.
Yeah. And isn't it exciting? This is like a success principle that I think anybody in personal and professional growth has heard before, but it's worth repeating right now. Usually successful people are willing to help. Some people that are, in my experience, successful people are always willing to take the time to somebody that really wants to succeed, that's willing to ask. It's the people that are pretending to be successful that don't have time, right? Or posture as if they don't have time. I digress. That's something that's neat that's coming through. So the sellers, the buyer says, all right, well, I'm afraid of buying right now because I don't want to buy at the peak. So number one, your guy thinks it's still going to keep on going, that it's not the peak. Number two, money's so cheap, it's still a good because it's not is this true in real, right? It's not the timing of the market, it's the time in the market, because over time real estate always goes up. And can you talk about that before I ask the next follow-up question?
Yeah. So when it comes to somebody saying, hey, look, it's just not, I heard it's not the time to buy, I'm scared, I'm buying at the top of the market, etc. I go into all the reasons why I'm buying, right? And then, which is the stats, right? Inventory, what it's done and how it's changed my life, how I don't have to worry about any bills anymore. It's like I wake up in the morning, I don't think of any bills. I just think of, okay, like, what do I do with my money? How to make more. But anyways, I go over all that. And then I just go back to, like you mentioned earlier, to kind of discover, like, well, hey, remind me again, why did you want to buy in the first place? And then getting back to the reason why they wanted to buy. And, a lot of times it's, either their family, right? They want their kids to have something.
Yeah.
Or they just want a better life for themselves. They want to create wealth. And
so you're getting at what I was trying to fish for right there. Let me just slow it down a little bit. But the tip that we read tonight, we are on Get a Clue in 52. And the tip that we read tonight is talking about diagnose or discover, what do they want, but not just what they want. Why do they want it, and how bad do they want it? All right, so now that's what you're talking about, Voltaire. It's easy to see one feature or one aspect of a decision, and you'll have an opinion of that. But if you forget all of the reasons that you were looking at that opportunity or decision in the first place, then you may never make it, right? I have a 4-step process that I take people through, or I coach people through when it comes to big decision making, right? Make a list of everything that's ideal, then put an asterisk by the must-haves, then make a list of everything that wouldn't be ideal and put an asterisk by the deal breakers. And that way, because like I imagine even with a house, people are going to have an opinion on the trim, the paint, which direction it's facing, what the zip code is, what the neighborhood is, what the flooring is, what the tile is, what the layout is, how big the kitchen is. You're going to have an opinion about all of those things, but are those things on the must-haves and deal breakers list? And we have to, as advisors, get people back to remembering what's motivating them in the first place, because it's easy on a big purchase, a big investment, to get scared of anything, right? So we have to remind people what they want, why they want it, how bad they want it, and either this thing is enough to scare them away, right, in a calm, right, or real estate is, what did you say the other day? You said it's expensive but not too how did you put it?
I say real estate right now is expensive, but it's not overpriced.
There you go. One more time. Slow that down.
So real estate is expensive, but it's not overpriced.
Elaborate.
There's a difference. There's a difference. So when you look at real estate and people in San Diego, they go, man, you know, my neighbor's saying that it's so expensive right now. It's true, right? I mean, $830,000 US for a house is expensive. However, it's not overpriced, right? So when you compare real estate to US dollars, it's expensive. But when you compare it to other commodities, so if you're going to buy a medium price home in gold, you need a lot less gold today to buy a medium price home than you did 20 years ago, right? A lot less. Same thing when you compare it to oil, right? You need a lot less oil to buy a medium price home. So, and I believe that real estate still has room to run, right? Because when you compare it to like the average mortgage, right, that you have, I mean, people right now that are buying homes in San Diego, which is again expensive, right? Yeah. Their monthly mortgage payment is in the 30% range of their total gross income on a monthly basis.
That's lower than historical, right?
Yeah, historically, even, you know, the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, people would have to spend, you know, in the 40% range of their mortgage to afford a home. So right now, if they're spending a lot,
40%, you slow down. Let's slow down in case people are hearing this for the first time. 40% of their income. Towards the mortgage.
Towards the mortgage.
Like as far back to 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? But now currently what you're saying is, if you look at the numbers, because interest rates are so low right now,
and wages are higher,
and it's only 30% on average, right, of people's incomes.
Yeah, it's in the 30% range, which is super affordable. So when people say, hey, it's expensive, yes, in US dollars, if you just look at the price and take nothing else, yes, it is expensive, but it's not overpriced. You know, I don't think real estate right now is overpriced because people are earning more. They're paying, you know, less percentage of their total monthly income towards the mortgage. So, you know, and this is the other thing, Jeff, is you meet, out of probably everybody that I know, you meet a lot of people that could really benefit from your services, meaning people that don't have life figured out. Nobody does, but like people that really need to find, you know, what they're good at or how to do it, or just a better way of life, right? Like whether it's psychological, whether it's money, whether it's physical, like a lot of people need you for a reason. And a lot of times they can't see that reason. Yeah. Right. They just know that they're not happy. Right. Mm-hmm. So you could look at them and you can say, hey, this is what I do. This is how I could help you. And they might just not be in the headspace where they're just like, well, I don't know, you know, so my husband, my wife says that it's too expensive and your service is blah, blah, blah. Right. Right. Me looking back over the last 10 years, 12 years, since 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, I've heard so many people, so many potential home buyers or investors, real estate investors tell me, you know what, Voltaire, I changed my mind. I think things are too expensive. I don't want to buy. If I could go back and I could convince every single one of them, I would beg them to buy real estate. Yeah. Seeing what happened, seeing that, you know, prices went up like crazy, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, they would be sitting in a great position right now. I have a friend who hasn't bought because 2 years ago and some change, you know, his wife was like, no, it's too expensive. And then he was like, yeah, I guess, you know, it's too expensive. We're not going to buy. Now he came back because he's been renting and he already, you know, dumped a crazy amount of money in rent. Right. And now he's like, okay, I want to buy. Now it's like $150,000 to $200,000 more than what he was going to buy. So me going back in time, I wish I could go back and just beg them and say, dude, please. Why? Because I believe in real estate. So whatever sales you guys are in, you have to believe in it. You have to really know that it's the best thing for that person. So like Jeff, you believe that what you give people like is life-changing and super beneficial. So you have to really beg and plead somebody like, hey, I'm going to change your life. And you have to really believe it, right? Because what you do does change your life. What I do changes people's lives. And I believe it because I'm in it 100%. Like, you know, I'm in real estate. I invest a bunch of money in real estate. So I think whatever your sales job is, whatever you're selling, you know, you should wholeheartedly believe in it, that it's going to change somebody's life.
Yeah, you know, in other contexts, I refer to that as deserve them. In other words, like deserve clients, have a business worth building, have products worth selling, i.e., believe in your stuff so that you deserve your clients and your customers and so forth. You know, so just to recap, I just want to see if I can get this straight, if I make my own little bullet list just on that one question, and then we'll move on. Right. Well, number one, money's cheap. Number two, real estate always goes up. Number three, expensive but not overpriced. Number four, 30% of our incomes are going to mortgage now instead of 40%. So the price tag is illusion. When you refer to my services, my coaching is expensive but not overpriced. That's one of the reasons Patty knows from being in one-on-one training with me, as well as my group mentoring. When I train people how to coach or lead the way I do, we offer 2 comp sessions. That's how I built my career, is offering 2 complimentary sessions. And so if somebody says to me, Jeff, how much is your coaching? And I just come out and tell them, I gave out a couple proposals last week, and I had their sticker shock. And I'm like, hey, these are the retail rates we customize, right? You can always come down. It's harder to go up. What you're selling is a set price, the most of the inventory. But I'm going to ask you about getting creative on your seller's agreements and your buyer's agreements. How you remember, that's a great story, how you have the confidence to charge the fee. I'll get to that in a minute. But my point is that if somebody asks me how much my coaching costs, and they've never experienced my coaching, they're going to say that's expensive or too expensive. But if I've given them 1 or 2 sessions first, ideally 2 sessions, because I just believe, how else are you going to understand what accountability is unless you commit to something and then you're held accountable the next session. But after they've been through that, then they know it's not overpriced. Now it's just a matter of whether they can afford it or not, or customizing the program for them that they can afford. I always also believe, for my profession, coaching, it should be a little bit more expensive than somebody thinks they can afford. That's that rock bottom that forces them into showing up to their sessions on time and, you know, doing what they say they're going to do, and being right. When you're nervous about what you're investing in something, you're more motivated to make that investment work for you. It's got to be the same in real estate as well. So the other thing too is the game is set up for owners, right? We talked about this too, this other piece, right? Taxes, right? The you know, Hamilton, the big popularity of Hamilton and the financial system. And, you know, like my son is doing US history, and I'm trying to listen to the books that he's supposed to be reading, you know, and there's big debate about difference between Declaration of Independence, which was, you know, all about sovereignty, and then the Constitutional Convention, which is a bunch of rich white dudes alone, you know, in a private session. But anyway, I digress. The system's set up for real estate owners and property owners, right?
100%. Like this is the crazy part. It's like, you know, I've been having workshops in my office for the last 6 years. And I was like literally begging people, right? 20, 30 people would come, and a lot of them were, you know, friends of clients, former clients, you know, friends from back in the day, whatever. And I would say, hey, look, all the rules are set up. Like, this whole thing's a game. This whole thing, life's a game, everything's a game, right? And the federal government and local governments, they say, okay, this is a game, these are the rules. So first thing you gotta do is figure out what the rules are, understand the rules. And then most importantly, second thing is you have to play the game. A lot of people don't play the games, right? Smartest people in the world, but they don't play the game. So what I mean by that is what I mentioned earlier, Bank of America, they're giving out $17,500 right now. Free money to buy a house, 2.5% interest rate, no mortgage insurance. And then with the whole tax thing, and by the way, those are like all subsidies from the governments, right? Federal government, local government, state of California, that give, you know, they give tax breaks to companies like Bank of America if they give out money and like help build communities. So
fuel the economy.
Everything's set up in our favor as real estate owners and real estate investors and potential real estate buyers to basically play the game. But a lot of people are scared to play the game, right? Because of, again, what they hear from family members, friends, or whoever. So anyways,
there's other reasons they're scared, by the way. It's not just getting bad advice from people that are scared too. Some people might have emotional addictions to sabotage and inadequacy, and there's all kinds of reasons. It's multi-determined why people don't pull the trigger on a logically proven decision. But keep going.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because today I was with my buddy and we're having coffee, and I bring up somebody that we know. He goes, you know what? I don't talk to him no more. I go, why not? He says, because he's a scary cat, and I ain't trying to hang around with no scary cats. I'm just like, like he's never willing to actually like make moves, do something. You know what I'm saying? And that'll bring you down if like all you hear is like negativity of why you shouldn't be doing something. But
exactly.
Anyways, going back to the whole real estate thing, is like you could buy a home here in the U.S. every 2 years and get like first time or primary residence rates. You could get a very super low interest rate, super low down payment. You could do that every 2 years. So if I would have played that game, since I got into real estate, I would have another at least four properties, potentially 4 properties with maybe 7 or 8 tenants. But I wasn't playing that game, right? I knew the rules because I would have my clients buy it all the time, but I wasn't playing the game. So that's one thing, is every 2 years you could get that type of financing. The other thing is that every 2 years you could sell a piece of real estate as an owner and pay 0 taxes, free capital gains tax, which is
an investment property, right?
No, in your primary property, you could walk away with tax-free money if you wanted to sell your primary residence every 2 years.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's another thing.
Wait 2 years. Once you've been in for 2 years, then you sell.
And it's tax-free money. Right. Mm-hmm. The other benefit is like what you just referenced is for investors.
Yeah.
You could always keep moving up the ladder. Like, for example, I sold a house a couple months ago and I bought myself a 4-plex. So I went from 1 rent to 4 rents. And it was nothing out of my pocket. I just basically traded the first home and all the equity into the bigger property. So I went to 4, and I didn't pay any taxes on the sale of the first home on all the equity.
Capital gains. You just moved it right over.
Yeah, I did what's called a 1031 exchange. So I just traded one for another. And again, I'm playing within the rules that were set up. And by the way, the federal government gives all these incentives. Why? Because they want you to play the game, because now you're making the economy move. Because whenever I sell a house, I'm paying the escrow company, the title company, the landscapers, the painters, the local governments, as far as transfer taxes and notary fees. And all this
everybody's
stuff.
Got their hands in the cookie
there's
jar.
There's like 70 or 80 people that get paid whenever a property transfers. So instead of me holding on to that property forever, the federal government's incentivizing me. They say, hey, look, you could trade up as often as you like, as many times as you like, and you'll benefit because you get more cash flow. You won't have to pay any taxes. You get more appreciation.
And we're not tax consultants, right? Full disclaimer, but better depreciation also, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, because all these billionaires of the world, they don't pay any taxes, and you keep hearing about it, and people get upset, but they're playing within the rules. And the reason why they don't pay taxes is because they own so many real estate. They own so many apartment buildings, hotels, shopping centers, that if I bought a shopping center, as an example, or let me go, if I buy an apartment complex and there's 100 units, and the apartment complex cost me $20 million. Actually, let me do the math, 27.5 million. Let's just say I paid $27.5 million for the apartment complex. And let's say I get to depreciate the whole thing, right? So let's say the land's worthless and the building's worth 27.5 million. That means every year I get to knock off $1 million off my personal income. So if I earn $1 million and I have this apartment complex, I go, hey, I'm gonna depreciate this down to 0, because they say, the federal government says, hey, over 27.5 years that you own an investment property, residential, multifamily type property, you get to depreciate the entire asset down to zero, to the point where it's worthless
on
over
a 27 and a half year schedule.
27 and a half year
The
schedule.
value
So
of the
every
home
year
divided by 27 and a half years equals an annual tax deduction for you.
of $1 million.
An annual, yeah.
So on annually. So like, imagine if I earn $500,000 in a year or $1 million, I can just say, oh no, actually I'm depreciating. I got this $1 million credit. I'm just gonna depreciate it against my my income. So all of a sudden it's like I'm not paying any taxes. So there's all these rules that are super beneficial for real estate owners. And again, you don't learn them all overnight. And I already knew this, but I didn't know how it really worked until I started to do it. And so, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, Patty, remember we've talked before about knowledge plus experience.
Right.
Equals wisdom.
Yes.
Right. And there's always wealth in the wisdom. That's one of my formulas. Charlie, you can make that as a Klubi snack. Have we done this one before? Knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. ... And there's always wealth in the wisdom. All right. So we are, by the way, let me just reset at 8:44. This is the time's flying because this is so good, right? Get a clue in 52. This is tip number 34 overall, tip number 2 in the sales section. The tip itself is to diagnose, right? The effort and the depths of effort, the layers of strategy on figuring out not just what somebody wants, what they really want, what they really, really, really want, why they want it, how bad they want it. Why? Because we need to know what they're willing to do in order to get it. If the investment, if the juice is worth the squeeze, if you will, no scaredy cats, as Voltaire likes to say. And so we're just having a great conversation now. Voltaire, before I offer the floor to Patty or Charlie, we're talking about buyers, and we just went through a series of reasons why now is as good, if not best time to buy as any, right? And people needn't be scared at the expense of real estate because the investment is still better than anything else out there. We can go through the reasons again real quick. Money's cheap. Percentage of income going to mortgages is lower than ever. There's still room for it to grow even more. Historically, over time, real estate's always gone up. Tax breaks, the game is set up for real estate and property owners. Just to review some of the reasons we've talked about already. Now let's switch identities. Let's switch, because in previous installments of Get a Clue in 52, I've said you want more than one elevator pitch, for example, when you're networking, because you're going to talk to different people out there. So if I'm you, Voltaire, I'm thinking there's buyers, totally different dialogue than sellers, totally different dialogue with investors, totally different dialogue with tenants. Right. And the property owners whoever's holding banks, you got to sell banks into deals with you. And there's just all different types of people that you have to go into sales with. You have to motivate to move in your directions, right? So do you have anything, just, with that as a pre-frame, do you have anything else open-ended that you'd like to share about sales in general, real estate sales, or diagnosis, the effort it takes to really find out what somebody wants, why they want it, how bad they want it, and keep going.
I think, one thing that I'm not good at, it doesn't come naturally to me because if you guys know about personalities, DISC, I'm a SC, right? So I just kind of keep to myself. I'm introvert. And Jeff's the complete opposite, right? So like to Jeff, he's like teaching me all this stuff about how to build rapport and stuff like that. And I'm just like, okay, it's like, I'm trying. But one thing that worked for me is just the Ford method, right? Family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So FORD. Some people say frog too, family, recreation, occupations, and goals instead of dreams, right? Mm-hmm. So having that with your clients, right? Like, when you're first talking to them, okay, tell them about your family. Oh, are you married? Oh, wow. How many kids do you have? Right? Really diving, into those questions that for me, somebody like myself, that's introvert and like weird, it's like, I don't want to ask those questions. Right? Because they don't come off naturally. But if you have, let's say the Ford, right? Oh, well, what about your job? Where do you work? Okay, how long you been there? Do you have any side hustles? Blah, blah, blah. What do you do for fun? What's your recreation, right? The R, recreation, what do you do for fun? Oh, you play hoops? Like today, I was talking to some dude, and all of a sudden we start talking about hoops, right? What are your dreams, or your goals? and then nobody ever asked nobody what your dreams are or goals are. Like I was with my buddy the other day.
Oh, that, by the way, I always ask, but I digress.
Yeah. I'm sure you do. Yeah. No, but nobody. I asked my friend, and he was like, "No one's ever asked me that.
No one's ever asked me that before."
Yeah, he's like, I don't know.
Everybody else in my life just wants me to help them achieve their dreams. Nobody's ever asked me about mine.
Yeah. What are your dreams? What are your goals?
So there's another Klubi snack, Charlie. If you're not playing your own game of chess, chances are you're a pawn in someone else's game.
Ooh. Damn, that's a good one. I like that one. Yeah. So I think, for someone like myself, and again, we're in sales, right? And a lot of people naturally that get into sales, they're like high, I personalities, high D personalities. But for us who aren't, I think just kind of knowing something super basic like Ford and continually ask for that, I think that's huge. So anyways, I think that's the other thing that I wanted to add as far as sales. Yeah.
That's great. When I do coaching and leadership training, either one-on-one or in my group mentoring, I teach certain questions to ask at the beginning of comp session number 1 or for introductory session number 1. And what you just mentioned, FORD, those are things I want to know. But what I teach is to ask open-ended questions first and see which of those things comes out. And when anything like that starts to come out, just ask follow-up questions. Say, oh yeah, tell me more about that. You're listening for, how they grew up. And now like I could go into great detail about what I want to know. Like, well, were mom and dad together? If they split, how old were you when they split? Who did you live with, mom or dad? Did you have siblings? Where were you in the birth order? What's the age spread between oldest, youngest, and where were you? Did you, I want to know all of that, right? Did you move around a lot, or did you stay in the same house for all 18 years? Then, then I move up from there chronologically. So I throw education in there as well. Education, did you go to college or not? Or did you go straight into occupation? So, in that realm,
and you're really good at that. And because you're very good and you're genuinely interested. And it's almost like you're a natural. Like I've been with Jeff before and we're at a restaurant and he says like something funny and the waitress just busting up and I'm like, where you come up with that? Right now, that's called game. And a lot of us don't have that game. So what I do is I just stick to the script. It's like, okay, family, occupation, recreation, dreams, because it's easy for me. Right. And so, but obviously if you're like Jeff, more like Jeff, then it's like, that stuff comes natural. But for us, Jeff, it's really hard for like someone like myself, just throwing it out there.
My game is rusty, after Marianne, that was it. So a waitress here and there is the best I can do. All right. Hey, they're captive audience anyway, so I don't get that much credit. They can't go anywhere. They have to laugh, right? I digress. You're too kind, Voltaire. So we're in Get a Clue in 52, and you guys can tell we love each other a lot, Voltaire and I. And we had this beautiful conversation. I was on my walk the other morning. Voltaire calls, and we just had this great conversation. I thought, you know what? Let's record that. Let's have that same conversation. Let me interview you. Let's have it come out in a way that can serve others, because I learned a lot from it. And I'm happy that you're my guest this week on Get a Clue in 52. I may ask you to come back, in fact, in one of the last 10 weeks of the year when we get into accountability. You're welcome anytime, by the way.
Accountability. Yeah, that's a big one. I could talk about that all day with you.
Yeah. It's like, that's really how we got started, and it's grown into so many other things. But let me go ahead, and they've been waiting so patiently. Let me go ahead and invite Patty and Charlie, who are with us live on the Zoom side, to open up their mics and introduce yourself to Voltaire. Let him know what you're up to, and if you have any questions for him. And let's. I'm trying to, Charlie, questions, not repeating everything we just said, but like a question.
Well, I'll go. I've been involved in real estate for a long time, and I loved what you said about the fact that, it's in context, it's not a bad time ever to buy real estate when you can get it at such a low rate. But people, I found, and I don't know, I think that you're saying that you've had to educate people, not just about real estate, but about money in general.
Ding, ding,
right?
Ding, ding.
Because
100%.
people are getting worried about inflation. And boy, there's really nothing wrong with being in debt when there's inflation, right? Because you're paying back a mortgage with a amount of money, and just because there's inflation, that money that you're paying back is actually less than what you're paying.
Yeah, exactly. I think
inflation.
That's a really good point. Somebody lets me borrow $1 million and they say, hey, Voltaire, I'm going to give you this $1 million and you could pay me back in 30 years. So you could pay me back with tomorrow's money, which is going to be worth a lot less. So I don't even have to pay with today's dollars. I could pay with tomorrow's dollars when it's going to be a lot less. And going back to inflation, that's another reason why to have assets, because when you have assets during inflation, they just go up. Over the last 12 months, just through inflation alone, I made over $1 million in equity. Like, it's crazy, so but if you have cash, then your purchasing power goes way down. So I think you're right, Patty, when it's a money thing. And that's one thing that we've been doing over the last, we started teaching kids about 3 months ago about money. So every 2 weeks I have a workshop. Yeah, I have a workshop, assets versus liabilities. I talk about the types of loans, whether it's car loans, student loans, etc. I talk about credit and bank accounts. So I'm teaching kids, and then their parents are there and they're learning. But when I'm on one-on-one with individuals, I look at their stuff and I go, hey, why do you have 30,000 in the bank, but you have 10,000 in credit card debt? You're paying 20%. Like, no, take 10,000 from your bank and pay this down to zero, right? So I start teaching about money. So I think it's important because that's how they number one, you want to help them. Number two, they trust you because of it.
Right. You're helping them. Yeah. But I love that you had that overall picture about money as your knowledge about it.
Yeah, Patty, you said the word, but I think it deserves an italic and bold and underline: education. And I put that, Voltaire and I, like, we were on the phone the other night, and I'm creating, did you see the flyer that I created? The little graphic, right? Oh, I'm sorry, my marketing team created. Right. And at first I put Voltaire Lepe, real estate broker / investor. And then I actually put philanthropist. And even though he's given over $100,000 in 8 years to Our Lady's schools, he wasn't comfortable. He's like, I think I need to do more before I could do that. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm putting educator then. How about it? He's like, I like that.
Well, it's well deserved. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And I'm just really pleased that you picked up on that piece of it. It would be easy to describe Voltaire as a realtor, a broker, an investor, a salesperson. But what I really, admire about him, amongst all of his accomplishments, is his commitment to educating others. And when you talk about educating kids about finances, it's one of the most important things that can be done. I digress. That my parents never educated me about finances. They taught me how to watch TV. They taught me really good. But anyway. Charlie, do you have anything for Voltaire? We're on Get a Clue in 52 at 8:56 p.m. Pacific time. It's Monday morning for Charlie, all the way in South Africa, Voltaire. So I don't know if the real estate market is the same, but Charlie, what do you got for Voltaire?
Good morning and welcome, Voltaire. And
hey,
thank you for sharing all your nuggets with us.
Of course.
You mentioned the Ford cycle. How does it actually apply to demographics? Nationalities, affordability, etc.
Yeah, great. I mean, the beautiful thing about that is it could go with any demographic. It doesn't matter, because what I'm building there is a bond between each other, because, before I used to just stand next to someone and like, what's your name? Oh, my name's this. And what's your name? It was awkward. Right. So it's like, how can I build rapport with somebody? It doesn't matter what color they are, where they're from, how tall they are, like, none of that matters. It's just like, I'm getting to know about them. And what I've realized, Charlie, is, and this as a salesperson, is when you start asking people about themselves, they like that. They really like that. And they start saying, like, they start talking, opening up, and that's how you start to build rapport. Instead of meeting somebody and they're just talking about themselves, like we all naturally want to talk about ourselves. So if you, Charlie, start asking someone questions, and let's say you have you follow a formula, Ford formula, and you're talking about their family, you're talking about occupation. Oh, wow, you're an engineer. So what made you get into that, right? You start diving deeper. People love talking about themselves, even introverts like me, like we love talking about ourselves. So I use that with everyone, and I don't change it for any type of demographics.
Yeah, some demographics are visible to us, right? Just by looking at somebody, there's certain, right, graphics that are visible, we can see, right? But other things, the things that we really need in order to be successful in a sales process are the psychographics, right?
That was going to my follow-up question on
that. I'm sorry, I didn't want to take that from you. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah. So how does the Ford formula, after building the rapport, the additional part of the psychographic, within going through the Ford formula, do you then determine what the habits are, the likes, the dislikes, and what would actually motivate them to, by them telling you about themselves, how does that influence what you actually identify what they need or want is? And how should you continue?
No, go ahead. Sorry. And how should
I? And then that influences them as well to have a better trust in you as well.
Yeah. So, what I do is I keep in touch with my center of influence, my sphere of influence, right? So everybody that I've helped in the past, all my friends, all my families, all my clients, any people they referred, I follow with them regularly. So I'm on the phones a lot, right? And because I'm in sales, I'm trying to find out who I could help, right? So every time I talk to them, instead of just me, hey, Charlie, it's me, Voltaire. Hey, I'm looking for a new homeowner to help, somebody to help sell, somebody to help buy, like, who do you know? Instead of just me asking like for me personal reasons, I start off by just having a conversation with them, asking them about them and how they're doing. And I do that throughout the day. I ask them about their family, how's their job coming along, how do they like their house, etc. And then that just creates a more trust between us. And then with that more, the trust as it builds gets stronger and stronger. Hey, they refer me to, their coworkers at work that need to buy or sell real estate. They refer me to, their brother-in-law that just got married and they need a new house. So at that point in time, Charlie, I'm using the Ford method more so to build rapport than to actually use it for sales. Okay. Yeah. Now, going to the question about, well, how do I analyze them, right? Because again, I'm very analytical. I'm a C personality. I like to. So I use more of the DISC test in my head. So I'm thinking, okay, so what are they saying? Are they saying that they feel really good? Okay, if they feel really good, they might be like an I personality, right? Or if they're saying,
we want to get this transaction done quick.
Yeah, then they're a D personality, right? If they're saying like, hey, I'm still thinking about it, I have to like run some numbers, and I know they're analytical. So then I start talking numbers with them, right? So based on the conversation, yes, I think about the DISC test or the DISC personality profile. And then that's when I start to say, okay, well, let me see how I'm going to talk to them. Am I going to talk to, and then, there's other stuff that like mirroring, right? So there's speaking very slow, then I speak very slow. They're speaking fast, I try to speak fast. I can't a lot of times. So I use Ford mostly just to build rapport, gain trust, and then ultimately get referrals. Or if we're in the deal, Charlie, then for them to trust me with what I suggest them to do. And then obviously if it comes down to sales, we're in the deal, then I know my DISC personalities and I talk to them the way that they want to be talked to.
So in addition to what you're saying there, Voltaire and Charlie, great questions. What I'd like to offer, and I didn't want to get in the way of your answer, Voltaire, to Charlie's question, but what struck me a couple moments ago is this. remember the tip that we read tonight is find out what they want. Find out what they want. Okay. But building rapport is the process of finding out what they want, why they want it, how bad they want it, and getting that agreement. You follow that? We talked about that in the book, is getting agreement with the person that you know what they want, why they want it. So Ford is not just a way to build the rapport to feel like they're on the same page in terms of liking and trust, right? You're taking time to find out more about them than just when can I pitch you. But if you're doing a good enough job listening to the like in Voltaire's case, FORD, or however I teach, we get information from people so that we can build rapport. Ultimately, you might be in a position to say, oh, well, if your family's like this and your occupation's like this, and you like to do this in your spare time, no wonder buying a home is one of your dreams. In other words, you actually can start to connect the dots of what they told you. Yeah. Say, so you probably are looking to buy this home because of this, right? And now you're showing that, wait, you just heard everything I had to say, and now you don't want to just sell me a home, but you know why I want to buy it. If they come to you and say, hey, I want to buy a home because, a lot of salespeople will ignore the because and just try to sell them something. Right. But going to build rapport first, you may find out the because and tell them the because before they told you the because. And then they'll think that you're different than everybody else because you're really listening, you really care, and you're thinking about it. You're connecting the dots, stringing the pearls. And even if you're wrong, you say, oh, so you want to buy this home because of this? They go, no, I can see why you would think that. Why I really want to buy the home is because of this. Oh, tell me more. On and on. But it's not just building rapport, but or it's going to that depthful level of beyond just, it's not just like seeing something on somebody's desk and saying, hey, I fished too, or whatever, right? Like, what do you want? Why do you want it? The more I can learn about you, the more I can know about your why, your motivation. And that's going to determine everything else I do in the process, and that's part of that is what's your behavioral style? How am I going to speak to you, right? So some people like a high C, they want to make sure they got a perfect deal, no matter how long it takes. A high D doesn't care if the deal's perfect. They just want it done. Anyway, and there's everything in between. Get a Klu in 52. We're at the 1 hour and 6 minute mark. Voltaire, you've been awesome. This has been fun. I hope this is fun for you. But let me do a last call from Patty or from Charlie about any questions for you specifically about sales, about real estate. We don't have to stick to sales. I just like to at least tether the special guest and what we're talking about, at least the beginning to what we've read. But as always, this can go anywhere you guys want it to. So last call, comments, questions, offerings for Voltaire or anything else on Get a Klu in 52.
No, nothing really, but to say thank you again, Voltaire, for coming on and sharing your time with us. We really appreciate you, and your insights are actually very highly appreciated as well. And again, Coach Jeff, thank you very much for bringing Voltaire to us and sharing his insights with us as well.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm really thrilled. You guys hopefully came through how much we love each other and how effortless it is for us to get into conversation and to feed off each other. Opposites attract. We've been wonderful for each other for all these years. Voltaire, I'm really grateful. Patty, do you have anything else?
No, just the same. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed listening to you, and I hear Coach Jeff's coaching in what you're saying too, because I can tell the two of you have been working together for a long time. It's great to see.
Yeah, well,
Coach Jeff does that. Well, Coach Jeff does rub off on you in some way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's helped me out for many years, and I owe it to him. I owe a lot to him for just, again, simple, basic. Hey, get me out of bed. In the mornings, accountability, getting. I a lot of stuff that I've built in my business as far as sales systems, organization, was because I committed to things, and he held me accountable to them. Right. I put money on the line. If I didn't get it done, he would charge me. And it would, a lot of the stuff, I don't know, I'm sure Jeff remembers, but, I would say, okay, Wednesday night between 9 p.m. and 12 p.m., I'm going to work on my sales funnel, or on my email thing from, Sunday, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. It was hours that I rather have been at home watching TV or hanging out with friends. But if I didn't have somebody holding me accountable, I would have hung out with those friends and watched TV and just not built what I built. So I think accountability is huge. I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for you guys for jumping on tonight. I know it's late, so it's a big commitment. And I know, Charlie, it's early morning Monday, so get after it after this call. And by the way, I own some South African Krugerrand, gold Krugerrand, right? Because I think it's important to invest in different things: real estate, gold, precious metals, stocks, right? Some cash. So anyhow, cool. I'm glad to be here tonight. Thank you guys.
Yeah, obviously, I think I'm the big winner, surrounded by the love, and it doesn't have to be 1,000 people as long as it's productive and it's fun and it's useful. Nice little intimate gathering tonight. But who knows how many eyeballs will be on tonight's video. Voltaire, I wish the world was watching in terms of the advice that you had about investing in real estate and building wealth, and hopefully you come back on again, and I'll hit you up on that. Patty, you ready to seal it with a kiss?
Ready.
All
Okay.
right, Charlie, you ready too with the first edition? Beautiful. Ready? Here we go. 52. Signing off. All right. Good night.
All right, peace out, guys.
Thank you guys.
Night, everyone. Have a great week.
All right, thanks, you too. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.